What's going on, everybody? Zach here, and this is What's Melting. Today, I'm working on this coffee cup. It's full of silver fume, got a couple implosions on the top, and some silver twisted up in the handle, then a few galaxy lip wraps, all separated with a bunch of clear. Right now, I'm just opening up a section of 44 by 4 to fume into. The handle there is a 16 mil tube. Helps me really fume into the tube deeper than the 10 mil rods I usually work on. So I'm not necessarily going to call this one a tutorial. I think I'm more thinking out loud about cup making. I'm not an expert at this. I really find cup making to be enjoyable, super satisfying to turn out a nice cup. But flaring a lip is not the easiest thing in the world. I've become a little more proficient at it over the years, but it's still something I'm not perfect at. So here you see I'm actually like silver fuming into the blank. I applied in a kind of more neutral flame, maybe to slightly oxidized, and then I used an oxidized flame to clean up the inside of the tube. It burns off like the bulk of the silver and leaves some, but then you apply again, and you can do this repeatedly and get some pretty awesome colors from silver. But yeah, I'm just going to do those first two applications. This section's going to be the bottom of the cup. Yeah, you can see all that nice color the silver leaves in there, and it'll cook in and change color over time in the flame. You'll see as I finish this up and swap it to another blow tube. So here I'm actually picking up my graphite paddle and pressing that flare closed again. I've seen people do this a number of different ways. I find this is one of my favorite ways to start closing it up. Get it a little closer instead of just starting to pull with tweezers like I'll begin to do soon. I use my L-marver a little bit to close that up too. Get that cone shape started. And then, yeah, continue to get that lip a little bit more narrow. I find the more I do this at the beginning, the less I reduce the silver that I've put in the blank. Yeah, I do a second blank with a little bit more of a heavy application of silver that you'll see in the next clip, but I don't actually film the silver application. I figured you guys would be happy to see that once and we could move on. But this is the process I go through to prep some silver. And that blow tube actually ends up full of condensation, and this is why I'm actually picking a hole open right now. Or actually, I think I'm still closing this up. I'm going to close it up, blow it out so it's a bit more even, and then I'll handle up to that section with a 10 mil tube. It's my preferred blow tube handle size. And then I think we move on to doing an implosion. Yeah, just get that nice and hot, puff it out. Footage is sped up a little bit, so I actually pause a little as I come out of the flame, just let that heat kind of homogenize and even out to help you puff things out very round and even. Wavy wall weight is always your enemy, especially making cups. Like straight handles and uneven tubes really can hinder puffing out a large even cup. Yeah, now I'm opening that up for the blow tube. So yeah, definitely taking your time to do everything kind of methodically and evenly is super important for cup making. Like I said, I'm not necessarily an expert, so I didn't want to talk at length about the intricacies of cup making, so I actually shortened this this video quite a bit. It's only 20 minutes. I could have definitely made this one an hour long if I wanted to show you every step of the process, but I figured we could get enough out of it to share most of the process. So now I'm going to flame cut that blow tube off of there that I started on. And then I'll round out the end of that tube. So now I'm going to actually move on to the implosion portion. I'm going to be puffing out a thinner bubble on the end of there and putting a bunch of clear dots on the outside to displace the silver underneath. So I do some kind of different patterns at this step of the way. Like instead of doing just like the common honeycomb with a bunch of dots circling around each other, I kind of do some dots and lines and swirls and stuff. It really gives some cool patterning. I really enjoy the effect. Something I've been playing around with for a little while. Yeah, just looks like I'm just trying to warm up that end of that blank. Yeah, there's that color from the silver once it's cooked in. It really changes, kind of gives you more blues and greens instead of that kind of yellow metallic look. And I ended up doing 3 separate implosions on this tube, and this first one, I think it was the only one I filmed, but I actually discarded the implosion and ended up using 2 other ones. The surface of the tube actually started to kind of haze up in between the dots. This is something I run into sometimes when I go a little too big with my implosions, and I'm guessing it's some sort of devitrification or maybe cold stress, but it's really something that doesn't cook back out. Like I try to heat it in the flame and even it out again, and it just doesn't go away. So I'm curious if maybe I'm getting some bloom, because it only really happens around the outside edge of my implosions, and I think I might be like kind of getting a little bit of bloom on the surface and then trapping it in and kind of like just having a issue with working it back out, or maybe working hot enough to avoid it entirely. Yeah, there you see me doing one of those big swirls. I really like doing that kind of spiral pattern on these. But yeah, I've got a video. My last upload was a different kind of style of implosion, just color onto clear dots or onto a clear bubble. So if you guys want to go and check out some of my other stuff, I'm pretty new on YouTube anyways. If you're new to this, I've been posting for a couple weeks now. I've got a wigwag video. That was my first one. It was a little rough, and then I did a implosion with carmeline and galaxy, a bunch of dots with like this kind of like star pattern. That's I'll be adding this to the playlist anyways, and I'd love the any feedback if you guys want to go and have a look at that. But yeah, now I'm just trying to heat up that whole bubble and melt these dots in. Like the more even you do this, the more evenly the pattern will turn out. You can kind of condense it unevenly sometimes, and the pattern will be kind of affected by that. So yeah, a nice large flame to melt it all in at once and then puff it all out and even the wall of that. So yeah, I did that 2 more times to get the prep for that cup, and then this is actually the handle. I've put some silver inside a tube and kind of gotten a bunch of beads of silver to coat the interior of the tube, and I flatten it out, and then I twist it up and pull down into this cane that has that swirling silver pattern inside. But I'm just working that connection point to add the handle to the cup. And this is like part of why I didn't want to once again do a tutorial. This is my second mug. I've really not done much for making mugs, so adding the handle is a bit of it's not a bad process for me. It turned out quite well, but It was a little slower to work in than I would have liked, and I spent a little more time with the cup out of the kiln in between steps in the process, and I actually ended up popping the cup back in the kiln quite a few times while I was putting the handle or working the handle in. I just was a little bit frantic and didn't get back to a kind of a kneeling flame as frequently as I probably should have. So in kind of careful anticipation of how cold the cup might have been, I used my kiln to warm things up a little bit more instead of the torch. There I was just flaring a blow tube to add to that cup. I really didn't show the process of doing the encalmos or the building of the blank. I kind of was a little bit sidetracked with some other things and figured I could at least show you guys the flaring of the lip. So yeah, just holding that, making sure my tube or my blow tube's on straight. And then I put a plug in the end of that handle that I just put in so that I can work the other side of the cup and puff from the top side. So when I heat that up, I'll get out of the flame and hold the cup kind of upright and look down the blow tube onto the piece that I'm blowing out and really try to have even rotation here so that I don't twist the cup up, because I want to thin that top end of the cup before I flare it. Yeah, I would have loved to have gotten a second camera on where I'm puffing this part out, but I just couldn't get my hands and my blow tubes in front of the camera to show that part. It's another part of the process I'd love to work on. But yeah, you can see it's starting to expand there, and now I'll heat in between all those lines, that part that's kind of concave still, and I'm gonna slightly be pushing together with my hands. But when I say pushing, I really mean like not pulling, not really like, because if you push, it condenses and starts to ripple and stuff, and it's a little bit difficult to even out. So there I actually turn on my third stage of my torch because I just wasn't quite getting enough heat to blow that cup out. I'm working on a Bethlehem Grand sharp flame, so that thing's got quite a bit of heat when you turn on the third stage. Yeah, I just got that, I think, as good as I wanted, and I'm gonna flame cut that away. I stretch it a little bit to be sure I have a pretty thin membrane in the middle, and then I'm gonna grab a rod and I puff into it just a little too and try and thin it a little more, and then yeah, gonna kind of pick that hole open on the end. I really avoid blowing that out because there's always like a little tail of boiled glass that kind of wants to collect somewhere on the lip, and then you have to pick it away, and picking it away is really difficult. Actually, I'm using a bowl push to flare my lip. It's just the first piece of graphite I had on the bench that's kind of a smooth cylindrical shape, so I was using that. I wouldn't mind getting some parachopes or something like that, but until then, I make do with that. So here I'm progressively opening the lip up, and I'm using that to kind of bring it back to a center even hole. Like I picked up the reamer because it was slightly flaring unevenly, and then I come back in afterwards, and I keep pushing on the lip to keep it pretty flat, and then try and get as much even heat into the cup as possible so that I can, open that up evenly. This is where I often fail. I've very frequently overheated the cup as I'm flaring the lip, and then that section of the cup starts to fall, and you end up with a very uneven, wonky cup. And as much as people at like the farmer's market when I'm selling my glass love to see these wonky cups, I really don't want to share them with people. It's the last thing I want to do. I'm very much anal about how these types of things turn out, and I want that even lip. This one actually turned out quite well. I was very happy with it. I used to actually try to flare them and like just heat up the cup and use the force of spinning the cup to open them up, but that really ends up going poorly for me, so I decided not to this time. And I've lately, that progressive opening has become a lot more successful for me. Here I am adding that handle. Once again, I really need a second camera to try and get some of those shots when I'm outside of the flame. But as you can see, I kind of stuck one end and then heated it up and hinged it down towards, I like moved to connect the second portion, because it's tough to get both of those pieces hot enough to stick on the cup at the same time. So yeah, I just started with one, got it most of the way there, and then hinged the second one on, get it in the flame, and then touch the side of the cup. And I'm really trying not to heat the body of the mug. It can really start to cave in the wall a little bit, and I'd like to preserve the shape that I puffed out there. This mug is a little bit of a thin-walled mug for keeping everything from melting in, so it's something I really had to think about. And then, because I was a little bit frantic with the process here, it kind of was a little odd for me. I think the camera shaking there, I tried to pick up my hand torch and I realized I had the hoses kind of caught up in the tripod legs, and I decided just to keep on going with my bench torch, and it probably hindered the process a little bit. Next time I set up for this sort of thing, I'm going to be sure to make sure, my hand torch isn't kind of tied up behind my camera. It was a bit frustrating in the moment. But that's what happens, doing a new build. I've only done 2 mugs, so it's still kind of figuring out my order of operations. I'm definitely open to anybody giving me some hints and pointers and sharing their experiences making cups and mugs. It's a lot of fun doing it. But yeah, there I go, kind of continuing. I'm using gravity to kind of like pull the bulge of glass that formed as you press onto the wall of the mug, and pulling that glass away from the connection point a little bit, and then using the other direction afterwards, like pulling the bulge away and then using gravity in the opposite direction to kind of even out the connection point. I did cut out a bunch. It took me a lot longer than I would have liked to get that handle worked in there, but there you see I've got my grabbers attached now. I actually got those from Mataskuki. His handmade grabbers are super versatile. But now getting to finishing up this cup, the last thing I'm doing is flame cutting that blow tube away, and then being careful to pick every bit of glass from the blow tube away from that center point. So I'll give a bunch of heat to the bottom and allow that nipple that I kind of create as I pick away the last bit of glass from the blow tube to condense in. Then I get that thing down onto my graphite plate and kind of flatten the bottom. There we have it. My second mug. Really happy with this thing. And I really want to keep on making some more of these. I've got some orders that I'd like to fill up, and here I am putting a coffee in there. Really enjoyed building this, and I hope in the future I can do some maybe more complete tutorials on this kind of process, but it's been a learning experience. So you can see those silver fumed implosion patterns, some kind of lines and dots swirled around. That handle's got a really nice bit of color in there too. And I hope you guys enjoyed the process here and watching this happen. I'm gonna actually get a little cream to throw in there and see that color swirl in the cup. I've always enjoyed this process, or this step. Awesome. So thanks for watching. Subscribe, comment, like the video, do all those good things. If you want to see more of this stuff, I'm excited to keep sharing. It's been a long time coming that I wanted to do some YouTube videos, and I thought this project at the edge of my ability was probably something good to share with everybody instead of my couple previous tutorials for the implosion and wig-wag patterns. Thanks for watching, guys.